Welcome to Excella's Civic Innovators podcast, where we ask one big question and give one clear answer. I'm Dustin Heisler, president of eRepublic, the parent company of government technology.
And hello, everybody. I'm Noam Reininger, the CEO of Excella. Thank you so much for joining our show. The purpose is to highlight and showcase civic leaders and public servants that are really doing something transformational via the use of innovation, technology, and a deep commitment to citizens. They're truly changing how government works.
So in each episode, we're going to explore how local governments are solving big challenges with bold ideas. And today we're kicking things off with a story that's all about transformation at a ground level where it matters most.
All right. So we are really excited to welcome Nicole Ubbink from Merced County. She's the Assistant Director of Community and Economic Development at the county. Now, we're really proud here because Merced County is a new addition to the Excella family. And Nicole and her team have been on quite a large transformation journey, not only modernizing permitting, but really looking and transforming the whole way that the county is managing the land management process.
So Nicole's team has been on a mission to unify systems, streamline processes, and just kind of improve that overall experience for everyone, from staff to the builders themselves. And so today we have our one big question that we want to ask Nicole as we go forward around how has Merced County's shift to a unified digital permitting and land management system transformed efficiency, customer experience, and collaboration across departments?
Now, it's a big question, and Nicole brings a very informed perspective. This transformation journey did not just involve looking at internal teams, but ultimately reimagining how citizens are served and builders in the building community as well.
So let's get into it.
All right. So let's start right at the heart of it, Nicole. This was a huge transformation. And so you had fairly siloed departments working on their own processes, and you brought in a brand new, really large, change with a new system. So tell us a little bit about how you imagined that process and how you did it.
Well, in all honesty, it started probably in 2021. Our county board of supervisors realized there was a disconnect. Our department where we're located was called the one-stop shop, which so incorporated planning, buildings, environmental health, and public works, but they all were under different departments in the county. So everybody was independent of each other. So in 21, we started collapsing departments into one. So we brought in buildings and safety into planning. We brought in environmental health. And now we're all under one roof. We're under one office roof, but we're also under a umbrella of a department roof, with the exception of public works. But we're best friends. We work really well together. And now bringing everybody under one system, we have gained so many efficiencies with a building permit technician and a planning permit technician can work on the same records and serve our customers and not hand off the phone, right? So we are able to be efficient to our customers and not pass the buck, so to say, if it's a planning or buildings or even an environmental health permit when we go live with environmental health. So we're able to provide that crossover of all departments in one and have the true one-stop shop.
I love that. And as I think about, kind of the modernization journey that you've been on, there's so many different things that you could do right now, right? There's no shortage of problems within the public sector to tackle. So what made modernization kind of a non-negotiable for Merced County? Like, are there any things that stood out that just really drove this over the finish line for you?
Well, in the state of California, it was legislation that mandated us to move in this direction, to be able to provide transparency to the customer as far as where their application is at any given time in the process. That's a requirement in the state for a building permit, for entitlement permits now. So that was one driving factor because we had to meet the mandate by a certain date. And also just to really show our citizens that Merced County is trying to move at the speed of technology. We're not always the greatest. We're a smaller county, and I think you see that, and also in rural counties where sometimes it's a little bit harder to kind of cross the digital divide and get up to a very modern field. But we're doing it slowly but surely, and being able to provide everything online and at their fingertips, where they're checking on their permit, they're making their payments online, they're submitting, uploading documents where before they used to have to email it and wait for us to put it onto their application. It's just providing them that more self-service that they didn't have before with our old system. So for Merced County, it was the right decision at the right time. A lot of factors at play, but the ultimate choice in going with Acela and putting this modern approach really just, it was this perfect crossroads where the timing was what we needed to do and wanted to do, and made the most sense.
And Nicole, I'm curious, as you had your different choices on which route to go from a technology perspective and for the project, one option was to have kind of point solutions and make single departments more efficient and then connect them, versus going down the one platform approach that really connected all the different departments. As you all thought about those choices and ultimately went with one technology solution to unify and connect the departments, what were the trade-offs, and why did you choose to go down the route that you chose?
Well, I think as we were in our department growing and bringing in environmental health and buildings, and seeing where it was really a challenge sometimes to get information that you needed, because sometimes with the property, you need the whole picture. You need to see what are all of the permits associated with that APN. We didn't have that. Research, looking things up would take time. In Merced County, going to one platform made the most sense for us because efficiency for staff is primary. For customer service, having one location to go to for information, whether it be a Public Records Request Act question, or somebody's looking for all of the details of permits on an APN. Does that business have a business license? Do they have the right conditional use permit? Was that add-on permitted? Any of those things. And it just makes it so much easier for staff to be able to go into one location for that information and provide expeditious service to our clientele. Also, being in separate systems, with me in my role, I have to oversee all of the financial aspects of our department and track revenues and revenue streams, and kind of see where maybe some are lower than others and what is occurring there. In different systems, you're pulling that information from two different systems, having to bring it together in spreadsheets and do analysis that way, where now I have it at my fingertips and just run a report straight from Acela that can tell me all of the pieces I need to know, and actually do some very creative analysis right from the reports and tools that are there, which has been great for the county in that respect.
Love it. So you've now gone 100% online for submittals and payments, which is awesome. So take note, everybody that's looking at economic development opportunities in county government, Merced County is where it's at. But tell me a little bit, I want to double click on that. Internally, what operational shifts did this trigger inside the county? Now that you've got this unified infrastructure that is online and accessible, how did it impact the internal dynamics?
Well, everything change is a learning curve, I would say. When you're going from a couple different systems that operate differently into one, that's a change. So they're learning how to handle things just day to day, posting payments, navigating through the records themselves. So there was a little bit of a learning curve, and now we are 10 months in, and they're pros, and they navigate really well, and starting to now look at different ways to use the system even more. So enhance our use of the system, because we're just scratching the surface. And that's the exciting thing about continuing through this process with Acela, is what are the other areas that we can tap into to help our staff do more with the system. How are we tracking our time? Another kind of the fiscal aspect of it is, citizens pay X amount for a building permit. Well, what is that paying for? How much of the time are we covering of our staff? And by using the tools within Acela to look at staff time associated to building permits and inspections and plan review, versus just, well, it costs X to employ this staff person, so we need to charge Y for these building permits to cover that staffing cost, but we actually need to see what's the time spent. And so that's where having the Acela platform really helps to provide more specific analytical information to policymakers within the county as well, and setting fees and those types of things, where it helps just support all of those needs that we have to do in county government, and setting our revenues and setting fees and communicating to our constituents why it costs a certain thing. We now have the tools to do that more effectively. So it's an effective communication.
So Nicole, it sounds like you had a 10-month, of being in the system now with your team. There was a change management approach, and, you talked about kind of some of the roadmap and next steps in terms of bringing more transparency for costs. What are you seeing in terms of the operational benefits to your team, and how are those things translating to the community in Merced County?
It's a great question. For operational benefits, I think we're much more efficient. So when I look at the average turnaround time in the first 90 days that we went live for a residential new construction permit, that average time was 185 days to get from when we first was submitted. Within the first 90 days, the closing of those permits were on average 185 days. In the last couple months, it's now 52 days average turnaround time. So that's an improvement, 72%. And that speaks to kind of, I think, the staff learning the system, the constituents learning the system, and getting over those learning curves, I'll say. But it's a great improvement, and it's actually one of the things that we get asked all the time by our decision makers is, how fast are you turning these permits? Well, now we can show you. I can show you in a very easy chart, like it was this and now it's this. Look at that. It's great. It tells a good story and helps our customer base understand how quickly we are moving things along. And that's where I think one of our greatest success stories is really with our Public Works department. They were 100% paper, manual processes, everything on a spreadsheet that they would track as far as issuing of an encroachment permit or transportation permits. Now, by having everything submitted online, and they weren't taking credit card payments at that time either. You had to mail a check or bring in cash or your check. So now they're taking payments online. So they're dealing with large utilities like PG&E, AT&T. We've gone into, as we talked about earlier, modernization. That's improving their relationships with their customers so they can issue their permits much more quickly, do inspections much more quickly, and close those records out as within days at times. And that's where we've heard a lot of feedback of just general happiness, I would say, and satisfaction with the fact that Merced County did this.
That's amazing. I was looking for like the mind blown emoji on my computer to see if I could like have it up as you were talking about how, you chopped in half, like, more than half, like 3/4, right? Like the amount of time, which is just incredible. So, kudos to you and the team. Now, one of the questions I often get is like, how do you bring everyone along, right? As you think about people that are in different states of maturity, some people are more acclimated to doing things in a modern way, and we'll say that some are not. So as you think about those that are maybe less comfortable with some of the digital tools and the modern ways of doing things, how did you focus on them and kind of bringing them along in this new unified system?
Well, I think that's a very good question, Dustin, and it's definitely a lesson learned, especially as we go into our next phase with bringing environmental health online. We might have been a little naive in the adoption by what I'll say are just general public, where they have their business licenses with us, and some of them they've been a business license holder for 20 years. So they were used to getting their paper invoices and mailing in their checks and sometimes cash. I can't tell you how many times I would open an envelope or staff show me there's actually cash in an envelope. This is strange, but we're now moving them along, and I think adoption of learning this system, where I myself have been on the phone with our customers, and it could take them probably 45 minutes for us just to walk them through, get them set up, but we hold their hand the entire way through the process. And so that's our customer service focus, is we just make sure everyone's taken care of. We spend the time that's necessary to kind of bridge that gap, especially if they're uncomfortable with technology. They'll come to our front counter. We've made adjustments on how we have our front counter set up to accommodate for that, and have almost like teaching sessions. When we went live, we had office hours that I hosted in the main county admin building in our conference rooms, to have just customers come in, ask questions, help them submit an application, whatever they need. And that's kind of our approach. It really is whatever you need. We'll help them out. I'll email people user guides if they're a frequent flyer. I'll say, here's a user guide in creating accounts or adding people to your account, or submitting your applications with screenshots and all of those good things. And we continue to evolve that. So we assess where maybe we're falling short. We put a survey out now on our the public site for our constituents to give us the feedback, so we can continue to make improvements. And that's really the ultimate goal. So it's just a constant evaluation and listening to what the customers have to say, and implementing change that will make it better for them, in turn makes it better for us.
Nicole, you mentioned a real red carpet approach to change management. And earlier you mentioned, especially on the utility side, of folks being really pleased and that you've gotten positive feedback. You also talked about putting feedback on the website. And so I'm super curious, what kind of external feedback are you getting at this point, 10 months in? What type of feedback are you getting from the staff?
I think the external feedback, 10 months in, it's interesting. The people in Merced really still like to talk to a person. And so I think we get a lot of are still reaching out and having those conversations. But then you have people that love to be able to just go and handle all of their business needs online with have to talk to anybody unless there's a reason. So it's really just more of the feedback we get. Typically will be if maybe there's a hiccup, or it's kind of uncertain on how to use the system. So those are the things that we still continue to hear, but not as much, right? I haven't had as many phone calls to my desk as I did in the very beginning, because it was all hands on deck to get people set up and acclimated. Internally, staff are still learning the system and seeing different ways to use it, but also seeing how it's making things easier to track and answer those questions for customers as they come to maybe come to the counter, or they're calling over the phone, and they can navigate and help the customer navigate too. So our staff had the challenge of learning what the public sees at the same time of what they see in the back office. So they had to know both in order to effectively assist our customers. And that is where you saw our staff just take it on and learn it and become even that much more comfortable, because for them, that's their customer service. And that is a kind of a pillar in Merced County, is the best possible customer service, no matter who your customer is, whether it be an internal or an external customer.
I love that viewpoint on customer service. When I think about the public sector, being a recovering public servant myself, we often think of things like silos, and there's no shortage of that, right? And as you think about departments that are coming on board this with like code enforcement, how do you envision this approach and this unification, breaking down those silos? What is this going to unlock for you?
That's a great question with code enforcement, because I'm really excited about it, honestly. Code, they have their code cases, and there's a complete disconnect between what code has with an active enforcement case and a building permit. And unfortunately, there have been times where a building permit will get drawn on a property that there shouldn't be. Like, it should be locked down, no permits allowed, and we didn't know. And that's because code is with the sheriff's department and we are not. So now that when Acela was coming online and we were having training, and we had code staff, like, here's your logins, here's how you can go put, you can put a condition on the parcel, like you can lock it down. This is a tool for you to use. And then they said, well, how come we're not in the system? Where's our module? And I said, well, yeah, let's do that. We want to do that. So they're really excited. And we're going to have them live in about a month and a half. And it's going to just bridge those silos, and the communication will be even that much more fluid between our departments. Everybody will know immediately if there is an active code case or any kind of issue with any property that's within the county's jurisdiction. And I will say, because I'm project managing that implementation as well as the land management, I just know between the two departments, everyone is so excited to have that and be able to not have to worry about things getting missed, and just it's covered. And it is easy for code to go in and be able to see, again, all those permits on a property, whether it be business license, environmental health, or planning, because of how the database is set up. That I think for when people understood how they could see the information and they saw the benefit to their day-to-day work, that's all you have to show them. That was the selling feature, for the county and for the departments to buy in for the change.
Nicole, you mentioned what's going to happen pretty soon with code enforcement being on the platform and that enabling some real collaboration that wasn't there before. What are you seeing now in terms of kind of the merging of departments? Now they're on one platform, in terms of interdepartmental collaboration that's changed from before the implementation to now.
I think it just really smooths out that communication, right? Communication is key. And if we don't have effective collaboration or communication amongst departments, there's just always that, I hate to say it, but it's a little bit of finger pointing of, why did this happen? Well, you didn't flag the property, or you let a permit get pulled. There's no more of that. And it really, instead of anybody feeling as if you're working against one another, you're working together. So by being on one platform all together, while we're separate departments, we are really one team, one dream at Merced County, and we have to work together to provide the best customer service and services to the constituents. And that's how having everybody within Acela has us set up effectively and easily. It allows for great communication and collaboration amongst those maybe independent departments, but we're all under the county umbrella So we all do this together. And then we're bringing in environmental health, which is also just another layer to that, seeing the growth of Acela and the use of it throughout our county is showing what we're doing by modernizing and putting everybody together on the one platform. It's exciting, and for me to say when we are all in the same system, and it's almost like look at this, look what we did, and it's a great answer to solving a lot of problems that we encounter on a day-to-day basis.
It's so great. I think, Noam, we're going to have to check in with Nicole and team like in 6 months to see like how much more transformation has happened and kind of where they're at in this journey. So, another question is, you think about these large scale projects, inevitably you'll learn things that you might do differently if you were to do this again. So I'd love for you to maybe think a little bit about, are there any things that you would, advise agencies to think, about that maybe you would do differently? Could you start over again?
I think for us, the biggest lessons learned was marketing. How much marketing we needed to do to bring those different segments of the community along, getting them ready, and not having them surprised, because best laid plans, and you think we've got this figured out, where we're doing mailers, we did postcards, we have 5,000 business license holders within the county, and we've got to make sure, but we only have emails for 3,000. We had some hurdles to get across and part of it could be because we're rural-ish, and you have people that aren't, like we talked about earlier, the technology piece of it, they like their paper invoices, and they're just not going to change. And so, what are maybe delving a little bit more into the people we're going to affect with this change, and how do we effectively communicate the new system that's coming? What will be expected of them differently? Maybe that's with their submittals, that's going to be a very different look for them. So if there's an organization making a transition from one system to another, and we chose in our transformation to not migrate any building permits. We didn't bring any over. We started fresh from day one for buildings. That was a calculated decision, because we knew the data in our old system probably wasn't the cleanest, and so it was going to be more challenging in the data conversion for us. But we did it with our planning permits because that data was cleaner, and building and business licenses. So looking at those two different aspects, what were the effects of that? Was that the right decision where buildings was concerned? Overall, most likely yes. We've had to convert some records now manually. Would they want to manually enter those applications? I don't know. It's been about 500. So we would see. But again, it really was where I think we fell a little bit short. And I can say that because I was the project manager of the implementation and but lessons learned for the environmental health go live in March, is that communication, frequent, detailed enough, but not overwhelmingly. But here's what to expect with how we're gonna change the way you do business with us, and what does that mean? I think that's where we could have been more effective, and we're gonna learn from that going forward.
Cool. It sounds like you had some really good lessons learned in terms of a lot of it is about communication.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had to make some choices of, are there records that you redo from scratch? Are there ones where you reuse and import? As you think about other agencies that are about to embark on a big transformation like yours, and a lot of things went extremely well. You're 10 months in, it's going fantastic. What are some of the things that you said were kind of key success factors? So we talked about lessons learned, but what do you think that your team, the county, did really well that you would recommend for another agency as they embark on a transformation?
I think our team understood their data. They understood what they had in the old system and what needed to come and what didn't need to come. So we did a very detailed data analysis into understand, what were the parameters that were important to say what data is going to come and what is not. And then we also had a plan for what we did with all of those records that didn't come into the system. We have an archive in place. So we solved for those pieces because we know we still need to access that old data, but we didn't necessarily need to bring it with us. And that, I think we did a really good job of evaluating, sitting people down over, these things just don't happen, as you know, overnight. It entails many people from many areas of our organization, IT, the business side, our, the Acela team, and understanding what are the implications, asking those questions. What are the potential unintended consequences if we do something or don't do something, and being confident in the decisions that we made. And I think because we had so many subject matter experts at the table, that we went into it feeling very confident. And I will say it was successful as far as the data migration and how we configured our system from the get-go. And where I also think we are a good team and really successful is that we can evaluate ourselves on a regular basis and be honest about, was that the right choice? Yes, it was, or no, it wasn't, and let's fix it. And what is it going to take to fix it? And so nobody is just saying, I made that decision and it was the right one. I'm not going to change. We always want to we're looking to continuing to enhance and evolve. So I think that taking that mindset of, we always just want to make it better, and we're happy with where we started, and now we're looking to do what's the next level of improvement. And that's the drive for us.
Well, folks, that's a wrap. Nicole, thank you so much for spending time with us today. I'm really inspired by your humility, the continuous strive for improvement that you're talking about. And what's really inspiring is the significant transformation that you and the team at Merced County were able to make. So thank you again.
Well, thank you for having me. I've enjoyed it. It's great to share.
Yeah, I echo Noam's sentiments. It's inspiring to kind of hear your story and what you and the team have been able to do in a world of uncertainty and frequent change. I mean, you've really done a tremendous job showing kind of the art of the possible, and you've got data to prove it. So what a powerful story.
Well, thank you.
So to all our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe. You can pick up other episodes as well. And thank you for spending time with us today.
And don't forget to visit acela.com/podcast for more episodes, show notes, and resources.